We're talking about when friendships crack apart through the analogy of the levee breaking. There's a slide, there it is. This is one of the most common things as a pastor I encounter. People have close friendships or people in their own family or marriages that they come to me and want to talk because they just can't reach the other person or follow them down a path. And it's mostly because someone won't follow you according to the teachings of Christ, or because you can't follow them down a road they're going. It's a fork in the road that many people, myself included, and I can't stress that enough. I've had this happen. I haven't talked to my oldest daughter in 6 years because of decisions that she made, and because of the decision I made to go into ministry. And I've had a close friend as recently as last year for 30 years, same thing I had to sever ties with, And he texted me and said, "Drew, don't do this. Think about this." And I said, "We're done here, man. Sorry." And it hurts. It hurts bad, but we all face it. It's a fork in the road that a lot of people encounter. You can either weep and follow Jesus or burn and follow your friend or family member or spouse. I mean, it happens. Jesus told us it would happen. And that's why I get curious when people come to me surprised. It's one of those things we think is going to happen to everybody else, but not us. Jesus said in Matthew 10:34 through 36, this is a prominently featured philosophy in this entire message. "Do not suppose that I have come to bring peace to earth. I did not come to bring peace, but a sword. I've come to turn a man against his father, a daughter against her mother, a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. A man's enemies will be the members of his own household." So Jesus wasn't saying that he wants families to be broken. He was warning that loyalty to him can expose deep spiritual division, even within a household. When one person chooses Christ and another rejects him, that decision can create conflict because Jesus becomes the dividing line. And it happens a lot. It's tough to face losing a relationship or a friendship that's falling apart. It is like a flood. And we're going to get deeper into this analogy. We feel like so much is being washed away through no choice of our own and without any of our control or involvement to stop it. And for those of you who don't know, and I think everybody does, but a levee's an embankment. That's a wall they build to prevent water from overflowing during flooding. I live at the bottom of a levee, so if the river gets upset, everyone in Lock Haven's going to be safe except for me and Grace. So that's unfortunate, but a levee keeps something strong and beautiful from becoming something destructive and sad. And everybody knows there's a famous song about a levee breaking called "When the Levee Breaks." And despite the fact you may think of Led Zeppelin, I'm not talking about Jimmy Page is the biggest thief in music history, stealing from American blues players. Half the stuff he stole from American blues players. That's where the song was actually really written, an American blues player. But he's quick to sue you if you sound like him. Sorry, did I say that out loud? The song is a 1929 blues tune by a couple, Kansas Joe McCoy and Memphis Minnie, and it was written about the great Mississippi flood of 1927, the most destructive river flooding in the United States history. And in part, I want to read you some of the lyrics. You'll see some eerie similarities to what we're talking about. "If it keeps on raining, the levee's going to break. When the levee breaks, we'll have no place to stay. Mean old levee taught me to weep and moan. It's got what it takes to make a mountain man leave his home. Make you feel bad. You're trying to find your way home. You don't know which way to go. Crying won't help you. Praying won't do you no good. When the levee breaks, Mama, you got to move. All last night I sat on the levee and I moaned, thinking about my baby and my happy home. I'm going to Chicago. I'm sorry, I can't take you. I'm going down." Those are feelings of sadness, lament, and anguish. I mean, that is really hurt. And that's what it feels like. A levee's built because water can be beautiful and dangerous at the same time. Just like our relationships, A river can be peaceful and useful. We fish in it. We play. Everybody wants their pictures taken next to it and to live close to them. But when the same river rises beyond its boundaries, what was once beautiful becomes destructive. And friendships are like that. It can be one of the most beautiful blessings in life that brings us joy, support, and a sense of home. We feel at home when we're with people. But poor choices, sin, addictions, bitterness, dishonesty, they start to rise in a relationship. And just like the river, it overflows the healthy banks. And the boundary starts to crack. The same friendship that once brought peace now brings pain. The same person who felt like safety now feels like sorrow. The same future you imagined together can suddenly feel like you're watching it all just wash away. I've had this so many times in front of me in my office, in my personal life, before I got here. I mean, that doesn't mean that the friendship was never real. It means something has risen beyond its proper boundary. And to be clear, when I talk about boundaries, we know this particularly in the Christian faith. We have to set boundaries between the priority of where we keep our relationships with one another versus where we keep our relationship with God. Godly boundaries keep love from turning into destruction. And they're not a lack of love. Having boundaries for other people is not a lack of love. It's the only way love can survive without being swept away by someone else's choices. And I've had people that cut the cord with me because of my choice to follow Christ. A lot of them. Okay. Sometimes, we're comfortable in that tree, we're near the river, watching the view, not even knowing the waters are rising and we don't see it, but it's happening for a long time. And then the storm comes, levee breaks, ground starts to give away, the tree I'm sitting in starts shaking, And suddenly I'm forced to move from a place that I never would have moved from on my own. And when friendships break apart, it feels like the levee failed overnight. But you look back on these situations in your own life, the waters had been rising for a while. The painful moment feels sudden, but God is showing signs all along the relationship that this relationship cannot carry the future you were trying to build on it. And that's a sad reality that many of us face in the most unexpected times with the most unexpected people, because that's the way it always happens, just like the sermon. Suddenly. That's when it comes. Same time. God's not cruel when he lets a false security collapse in your life. A relationship that brings false security. Because he's mercifully showing us that we were leaning on something that, it's exactly what I said. It couldn't hold the weight of the future you were trying to build on it. You're not wrong for grieving. I mean, it hurts. I know that. And you're not weak because it hurts. So putting on the tough face doesn't help. You're grieving the friend and the future you thought you had. But the same God that can lead us away from the flood is the one who teaches us how to build on higher ground. I want to go some counseling 101, pastoral counseling, stuff I say, stuff I do. Why? Well, because we're talking about helping people, and most likely, if this is happening in your own life, you may be too bullheaded to face it, because most people are. If you've got someone you could love and go to, like we talked about last week, a confidant, a Christian brother or sister, I want to tell you what to say to people in this situation. If you know someone going through it, here's some advice on what to say to people. This applies to a lot of counseling, not just Christian counseling. Don't start by trying to explain the pain away. In other words, acknowledge it honestly. First of all, anytime you talk to somebody hurting, you let them talk. You let them do all the talking. People need to be heard. They need to get it out of their system, and sometimes they self-correct, because while they're talking and they realize you're listening, they'll say things they never said before. And then in their own mind, they'll go, oh. They can have aha moments. When you're trying to help somebody, let them do all the talking first. And, you say something like, hey, I know it feels like your world's coming apart. I know it hurts. I'm not going to pretend it doesn't hurt. It does. Losing someone that close feels like losing part of your life. But I want you to know that falling apart doesn't mean that God is letting go of you. And remember that. That kind of answer does two things at once. It gives them permission to grieve and a reason for hope. And they're both true. And I want to tell you some things not to say. When somebody's hurting because of a friendship or a relationship that's broken in their home, upon immediate discovery and in the first conversation that you have with somebody, don't ever say these things. Just move on. or God has something better for you, or everything happens for a reason, or it's all part of God's plan. Don't ever say that about anything. I just posted a whole video on why that's a crock. Don't tell people that's all part of God's plan. Don't say that when someone dies. Don't say that at a funeral. Don't say when someone's having a hard time. Don't say that when they're hurting. And don't say, God's got this. Don't say those things to someone. Okay, those things, many of them contain tiny pieces of truth, right? But when you say them upon immediately addressing a situation to someone that's crushed, that feels incredibly dismissive. It feels like you're using a Christian phrase off a bumper sticker because you don't want to deal with them. That's how it feels to the broken person. Instead, you say, hey, I'm here, you know. I'm here. I know this hurts. I know this is killing you. And you're not going to be alone. I'm here. I'm on call for you, man. We're going to go through this together. We're going to take it to God every day. We're going to call. We're going to pray through the pain. We're going to talk about it. We're going to navigate this together. That's what you tell them. That's what you tell a person. They need to know someone's with them. Not a quick, God's got this, and send them on their way. They're not there yet. They're in pain. And as a great biblical example, I want to give some examples about this, but I didn't want to use the one that all the other pastors use. You know, Job and Joseph, and they're just too easy. They're too repeated. I wanted to go a little deeper. So I found one that's pretty powerful. It's a biblical example of this kind of grief and loss that's going on in the heart. David at Ziklag, that's in 1 Samuel 30. David returned to Ziklag and found that the city burned. The wives, families, kids, everyone, the soldiers and daughters of all his men's families were taken captive. They were gone. The Bible says that David and his men, listen to this, wept until they had no more strength to weep. That's in 1 Samuel 34. That's a powerful picture of someone just emptied out, completely emptied out. And then it gets worse, because the men who were so devastated about losing everything, they talked about stoning David. David was not only grieving his own house, but the hurt about being blamed for this. So the people he was close to had now drawn a line of separation between him on top of all this pain. And then comes one of the strangest lines in the chapter, 1 Samuel 30 verse 6. But David strengthened himself in the Lord his God. So that doesn't mean that David just suddenly felt fine. I'm all better now, like Popeye, da-da-da-da-da, when he eats the spinach. That's not what happened here. It means that when everything around him collapsed, he reached for God before he reached for a solution. You reach to God first. When you have God as your navigator, you know the right places to look for solutions. You know the right people to trust. You know the right way to grieve. David sought God's direction, pursued what had been lost. He recovered what had been taken. And then there's another important detail after that victory. David became more generous. He became more generous, not more bitter. He did not get. He shared the spoils with even the people who weren't strong enough to fight. He was feeling better because he was comforted and had strength in God. That's the fruitfulness part. That's the fruitfulness part about going to God first. So the pain could have made him harder, but instead, walking through the pain with God made him wiser, stronger, and more gracious. And, I want to say, on a side note, if you're going through something painful and you come to church just because you think you're going to feel better because you came to church, but you don't absorb anything that's being said or talked about, you may as well be at the playground looking for four-leaf clovers, because church won't do you no good. When you come here, it has to be in the Lord, in the Spirit, in fellowship. You have to, even if you don't like the message, go out and tell somebody it was awful. I don't care. But talk about something. Come here for fellowship to get something from the love, kindness of each other and the Word. And some people just think, I'll go to church, I'll feel better. But if they're hurting this bad, they just tend to stare at the floor and go, why is this happening to me? And they don't hear it. They don't hear anything that's going on. They don't feel the people around them. They don't take the experience of the hugs and the prayers and the good mornings and the thank yous. And that matters. And back to the message. So David at Ziklag shows us that a person can lose almost everything. They can weep until they have no strength left, feel blamed and alone, and still find strength in the Lord. This may be the end of the chapter, but it's not the end of your story. If you're going through it, I know people that are going through this. When the levee breaks, don't let the loss of one relationship convince you that your life has lost all of its purpose. Grieve. By all means, grieve. We're supposed to. Grief is the residue of love. We're supposed to have grief. Grieve honestly. Pray honestly. Here's just a way to summarize what I was just talking about. Lean on God's people. Lean into God's people. Let the Lord hold together what you can't hold together right now. I want to expand more on what I said a second ago. And I know you already said that. I don't care. I'm saying it in a different way now because I don't want to be so distracted by the David thing. I want to extract the points from that. But I want to reemphasize how much I know this hurts if you're having this, because it's been my experience. Father's Day coming up is one of the chief things that made me think about it. I thought, wow, it's been now 6 years. My daughter's 30. But when friendships just aren't friendships, or relationships aren't relationships, it's a special thing. Someone that's your comfort zone, part of your everyday life, your plans, the future you thought you were going to have was with them, and it's over. So I don't want to minimize that if it's happening to you. But I want you to think about it this way. Sometimes we can sit by the levee in the same tree for so long, it does start to feel like it's my future. This is my future. This is my home. This person, this family member, this spouse, this person was my entire future. We see the water. We see the water. We know every branch. We feel the cool breeze. Everything's so good, so familiar, and we just feel like this is where I'm supposed to stay. This is it for me. It's me and you. It's me and us. It's me and her. It's you and him. Whatever. This is it. This is where I stay. And then the storm comes. The ground starts giving way. Tree shakes. Fear is the first thing that usually comes in. Why is this happening to me? Why did you do this? Everything I believed in is being shaken now. But sometimes the shaking's not the end of your life. The levee starts breaking. It's the beginning of a new chapter because God allows the storm to shake us loose from a place where we were never going to leave on our own. And I know I said that, and it's not because He hates us. It's because He sees what we can't see yet. And that's why we always talk about trust in God, trust in the Lord. It's not just just blindly go along. Some people hear that when they hear trust. No, it's because He sees what we don't see. It feels like your future's falling apart, but that's why it's not. It's one version of your future. It's one version of the future that you pictured. And it's a version that is attached to someone else's choices. The version of your future is attached to someone else's choices, and they make bad choices. I know it hurts deeply, but it doesn't mean God is finished with your story. One day you look back and you realize, man, that was painful. That was the most painful, but it moved me. It redirected me into a chapter that I would not have chosen. That's my entire testimony. I was completely comfortable in everything in my life. Babs did not want to leave. And I started to shake on the inside. My world started shaking on the outside. Things started going south. I'm like, why is this happening? I don't want to go into ministry. Are you kidding me? Have you seen me on stage? Seriously. But here I am. And this is the happiest I have ever been in my entire life. I have never had the satisfaction and the peace that I have now working in ministry. I didn't think it was attainable. I thought it was attainable through women, Jack Daniels, and loud music. Nothing wrong with loud music, but everything bad. Everything wrong. Through that whole time, I praised Christ. I just never walked in obedience. But that's my entire story. Right there, what I said. It moved me. He redirected me. He did things while I was hurting that I wouldn't have done on my own, and thank God He did. Because now I have a life. I have a purpose. But when it hurts, you got to grieve. I know you're grieving. Grieve what you're losing. Don't pretend it doesn't hurt. I know it hurts. But don't believe the lie that just because a relationship is changing, your whole life is over. God is shaking you loose from a branch because He's preparing you for ground that you wouldn't have reached if you'd have stayed there. At the time, you don't see that. Oh, everything's falling apart. Why? Why are you doing this? I know, man. It hurts. John 15, 1 through 2, Jesus says the Father prunes fruitful branches so they'll bear more fruit. Pruning hurts the branch, but it's not for the purpose of destruction. It's for the purpose of greater fruitfulness. So pruning is not punishment. Pruning is not punishment. Pruning is preparation. That goes the same for us, right out of the Bible. So, and I want to make something clear, because I don't want this to be your takeaway. The point of my message today isn't, you're better off without them. That's not what I'm saying at all. I don't expect you to void love out of your heart for someone. The point is, you can love someone and still not be able to build your future on their choices. That's been my experience, and it's been the experience of everyone hurting who's ever come into my office. You cannot build your future on someone else's choices. When they make bad choices, they made that decision. Part of what you're grieving is not only who they are, it's who they were, the version you thought was going to be there forever. I dare someone to tell me I'm wrong about that. That's a real loss, but your future's not dead just because their choices change the direction of your relationship. And this is exactly why the levee breaks in the first place. This is what brings us right back to the beginning. The waters rise in many friendships. People's boundaries and their priorities change. They completely change. You don't have to understand the whole story today. You just have to understand that God will hold on to you when the levee breaks. If that's where you put your priority. Listen, we're going to close out this now, and this last coming around the corner. And we opened this whole illustration with music, talking about a musical reference. And we're also going to close out with a musical reference. But instead of one full of hopelessness, even though it may sound like it, it's not. This one's quite the opposite. This plays in concert with the point of the whole message of today. I want to tell you about this. Horatio Spafford, he wrote the hymn, for those of you who have heard it, "It Is Well With My Soul." But I bet you didn't know that he wrote it after in his life the levee had broke several times in the worst possible ways. Horatio was 43 years old, a lawyer who lived in Chicago with his wife Anna and their 5 kids. In 1871, his only son died. He had 5 kids, only one son. And a few months later, the Great Chicago Fire of 1871 destroyed all of his real estate and all of their earnings, all of their savings. 2 years later, he and his wife decided they were going to take their daughters on vacation to Europe. So he's still trying to put their finances together. He's trying to get everything back in order. And he can't go. He tells his wife, take the girls, go on to Europe. I'm going to catch the next one. I'll catch up with you guys. So he sent Anna and their 4 daughters on the boat. They were aboard the SS Vala du Havre, which is a French boat. I can't say that right again, and I probably didn't say it right that time. They're bound for Europe on November 22nd, 1873, and the ship was struck by another vessel, and it sank in 12 minutes, killing 226 people. Anna was saved. All his daughters died. And when they saved her, she got to send him a wire. And all the wire said was, "Saved alone. What shall I do?" Well, Spafford dropped everything and he went to bring his wife home. And while on the journey across the sea, in the middle of his unimaginable anguish, as approaching the place where he lost his babies, where they perished, he wrote the words to the hymn, "It Is Well With My Soul." Under those circumstances, he wrote that. Despite these painful events, when the levee broke in his life more than once, in 1881, Horatio and Anna moved to Jerusalem to serve others, sharing Christ with Muslim and Jews alike. So, in closing, when a relationship fails because the levee breaks, God may not explain everything immediately. We know that. But he will not abandon you in the flood. Sometimes God restores things. Sometimes he replaces things. Sometimes he teaches us just how to get through it with an ache that won't go away. But he teaches us. But he never, ever, ever, ever wastes or turns his back on surrendered pain. Horatio Spafford shows us that deep grief can become a testimony that comforts others. And Jesus shows us that even when people leave, betray, or disappoint us, God's presence remains. Deuteronomy 31:6, he will never leave nor forsake you. It is well with my soul. All right.